All right, get ready for a deep dive into a film that's a bit of a wild ride time after time.
Time travel, Victorian London, 1970s San Francisco.
Oh yeah, we've got H.G. Wells himself chasing Jack the Ripper through time.
What a concept.
I know, right? A Victorian gentleman, an idealist, dropped right into the cynical heart of the late 20th century. What do you think that's like?
Talk about culture shock.
Right.
I think that's where the film really digs into themes like progress, disillusionment, all of that.
Exactly. You've got H.G. Wells, the guy who practically invented the idea of time travel in fiction, suddenly face-to-face with a future that's, well, not exactly a utopia.
And Malcolm McDowell as well. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. You see that intellectual curiosity, but also this vulnerability as he's trying to figure out this world that's both familiar and totally alien to him.
Total fish out of water.
So
But it's more than just the technology or the clothes. Right?
Oh, absolutely. It's deeper than that. The film uses Wells's journey as this metaphor for the anxieties of that whole era. The 70s, you had social upheaval, political turmoil.
The Cold War.
Exactly. That constant fear, the whole idea of progress starts to feel a bit shaky.
So Wells isn't just chasing a killer. He's wrestling with these huge ideas about what humanity is capable of, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And speaking of bad, David Warner as Jack the Ripper, chillin'.
Oh, Warner is just mesmerizing as the Ripper. Ruthless, cunning, and such a contrast to Wells.
It's like the Ripper thrives in the chaos of 1979 San Francisco.
Interesting.
Which makes me wonder, does the film suggest that maybe, just maybe, some parts of human nature, those dark impulses, are kind of timeless?
You think?
Think about it. Jack the Ripper terrorized Victorian London, a society obsessed with order, with progress. And yet, here he is, totally at ease in this more liberated, less structured 70s San Francisco.
That's a good point. It really gets to some deeper, more psychological, maybe even existential questions, right? Is there something inherently flawed in us? Does that darkness exist no matter how much society advances? The Ripper adapts so easily.
It's unsettling, isn't it? But then you have Amy, played by Mary Steenburgen. She brings this warmth and grounding to the story.
Amy is essential, I think. She's Wells's guide to this new world, helps him navigate everything, and their romance. It adds this layer of hope, of human connection.
Yeah, it's like their love story represents this idea that love can transcend any boundary, even time itself.
Beautiful. And it provides such a strong contrast to the Ripper's coldness.
Exactly. The film really plays with those contrasting themes. Wells representing idealism, belief in progress, and then the Ripper embodying this primal darkness that seems to exist outside of any specific time.
It's timeless.
And it all plays out against the backdrop of 1979 San Francisco. What do you make of that setting? Is it more than just a cool location?
Oh, definitely more. San Francisco was known for counterculture, social experimentation, but also this underlying unease. It's almost like the city itself becomes another character in the film.
It mirrors the anxieties and possibilities of that era.
Yes.
So not just a random choice. It's like a visual metaphor for all the themes the film is dealing with.
Exactly right. And that's where you start to see all this visual symbolism and motifs come into play. Think about the contrast between Wells's Victorian world with all those ornate details, the gaslight, and then you have Amy's apartment. Sleek, modern.
It visually represents that clash between past and present. Tradition versus modernity.
And the costumes, it's so striking. Wells sticks out like a sore thumb in his Victorian clothes. You've got bell-bottoms, leisure suits all around him in the 70s.
A visual reminder, right?
Yeah.
That he's not just traveling through time, but through totally different ways of thinking.
And absolutely. It's Victorian values bumping right up against the more relaxed, maybe even chaotic social norms of the late 20th century. But what really struck me was the use of color. Lots of darkness, especially when the Ripper's around.
Oh, yeah.
Very deliberate. It's a technique called chiaroscuro. Basically, a strong contrast between light and dark. It visually represents that struggle between good and evil.
Interesting.
Yeah, you see the Ripper lurking in those shadowy alleys while Wells and Amy are often in brighter, more hopeful settings.
It's subtle, but adds so much to the visual storytelling. You instinctively associate the Ripper with darkness and danger, and Wells and Amy with this warmer, more inviting light.
Exactly. And it really builds the suspense, too. Think about those scenes where the Ripper is stalking his victims. All those shadows hiding his movements make him even more menacing.
Like a creature of the night. It's so effective. But beyond the visuals, I think what makes Time After Time so gripping is that blend of genres. You've got sci-fi, the time travel element,
Right.
a thriller aspect with the Ripper's crimes, and then this genuine romance between Wells and Amy.
It keeps you on your toes. That genre bending is what makes the film so unique. It's not just a time travel adventure or a chase movie. It's a story about so many different aspects of what it means to be human.
Yeah, like even with all this darkness, this danger, love and hope can still exist. And it's interesting how that plays with the whole context of the late 70s.
Yeah, totally.
A time of so much uncertainty, the Vietnam War still fresh in everyone's minds, the threat of nuclear war always there.
The film might seem fantastical with the time travel, but it's tapping into some very real anxieties about the future, about where we're headed as a society, both the good and the bad. Why do you think it still resonates with audiences today?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. We're still wrestling with a lot of the same questions: technology, social change, how to find meaning in a world that feels increasingly complex. And the film doesn't give us easy answers, does it?
No, not at all. It throws these big questions at us right alongside Wells as he tries to make sense of this new world. He starts out as this idealist, believing in progress, in a better future. But what he experiences in 1979 shakes him to his core.
Yeah, it's like he's going through this existential crisis. He's confronted with a reality that doesn't match his utopian vision.
Exactly. And you can see how that ties into the broader themes of the film. The Ripper, for example, represents that darker side of human nature, the potential for violence and destruction that we all have within us.
I see what you mean.
Wells then maybe represents hope. That we can overcome those impulses, that we can use our intelligence, our creativity to build something better.
It's that age-old battle, right? Creation versus destruction.
Playing out not just in the characters, but in the world around them. And we haven't even touched on Amy's character much beyond her role as Wells's guide and love interest. What do you think? Is there more to her than meets the eye?
Oh, for sure. Amy's a modern woman, strong, independent, resourceful. She represents a different kind of hope for the future. She's not naive, she sees the problems, but she hasn't lost faith in humanity's potential for good.
Right. She's a great contrast to Wells, who is initially so disillusioned.
Totally. She reminds him that even in the midst of all that chaos and uncertainty, there are still people trying to make a difference, who believe in love, who fight for what's right.
And in a way, her connection with Wells symbolizes that hope. Love bridging even the widest divides, the gap between different eras, different ways of seeing the world.
It's a powerful image. It's like the film is saying, yes, there's darkness, but there's also light. And love can be that light.
Yes, guiding us toward a brighter future.
So we've got these big themes at play: good versus evil, progress versus destruction, hope versus despair, all woven into this really inventive time travel story. But what about the symbolism in the film? Any particular objects or images that jump out at you as meaningful?
A few. One is the time machine itself. It's not just a way to get around. It represents Wells's belief in human ingenuity, in our ability to push beyond limitations.
It's like a symbol of our power to shape our own destiny.
Yeah, but then it's stolen by the Ripper, right? So it becomes this double-edged sword. It could lead to progress, but it could also bring about destruction.
Right. It really highlights that idea that technology isn't inherently good or bad. It's all about how we use it.
Exactly. That's a message that's even more relevant today. Think about all the conversations we're having about AI, genetic engineering, all the ethical questions that come with those advancements.
Wow.
Time after time is asking questions that are so important. Can we control what we create? Are there ethical limits to what we should explore? What does it even mean to be human in this age of rapid technological change?
Big questions.
And that's part of what makes it such a thought-provoking film.
It's not just a fun time travel story. It really gets under your skin and makes you think.
And it makes you think about how our values, our beliefs, change over time. Imagine how different our world must seem to someone from a century ago.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
That's what the film does so well. It makes us think about how our own perceptions are shaped by the time we live in. What we see as normal or progressive today might have been shocking to someone like H.G. Wells. What stands out to you as the biggest difference between his time and 1979?
The social dynamics.
Yeah.
Especially the role of women. It's pretty stark.
Yeah.
I mean, Amy is a bank manager. She's independent, outspoken. That would have been unheard of in Victorian society.
You're right. The film uses Amy to highlight those shifting social norms, but it also does something really clever. It flips things around by making the Ripper totally comfortable with those changes.
He doesn't seem bothered at all by the fact that women have more power in this new world. If anything, he sees it as an opportunity. a way to exploit and manipulate.
Chilling, right. Societal progress doesn't always mean moral progress.
Which brings us back to that question the film keeps asking.
Yeah.
Have we really evolved as a species?
It's a question that stays with you. And that's the power of this film. It doesn't give easy answers. It just invites you to wrestle with these complicated issues and come to your own conclusions. But even with all the darkness, the unsettling questions it raises, time after time does offer a glimmer of hope, right?
For sure.
Right.
It's that love story between Wells and Amy. It's not just a romantic subplot. It's this powerful statement about human connection transcending everything.
It makes you feel like, even in a world where bad things happen, love and compassion can still exist. We can still choose hope. It really does make you think. And not just about technology, but about how much our values and beliefs can change over time.
I mean, can you imagine how different our world must seem to someone from, 100 years ago?
Almost impossible to grasp, right? But that's the whole point the film is making. It asks us to consider how much the time we live in shapes the way we see things.
Right.
What we might think is normal or even progressive today could have been totally shocking to someone like H.G. Wells back then. What do you think is the most jarring difference for Wells coming to 1979? What would really throw him off?
Honestly, it's got to be the way men and women interact, the whole dynamic, especially the role of women.
Yeah.
Amy's a bank manager. She's independent. She speaks her mind. That would have been radical in Wells's Victorian world.
Absolutely. And the film uses Amy to show those changing social norms, but then it does something really interesting. It kind of subverts our expectations because the Ripper is surprisingly okay with all of it.
He doesn't seem fazed at all by the fact that women have more agency in this new world.
Not at all.
It's like he sees it as just another way to manipulate people, another advantage for him.
Exactly. It's this chilling reminder that, well, just because society progresses, it doesn't always mean we're becoming better people.
So we're right back to that central question, aren't we?
Yeah.
Has humanity really evolved all that much?
It's a question that lingers, doesn't it? And that's part of why this film is so powerful. It doesn't try to give us all the answers. It just throws these big ideas out there and lets us grapple with them. But it's not all doom and gloom. Time after time has this glimmer of hope, too, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's the love story, Wells and Amy. That's what elevates the whole film. It's not just some side plot. It represents this belief in the power of human connection. Like, even in a world where there's so much darkness and chaos, love can still win out.
It can cut through all the noise.
Yeah. Their relationship shows us that even when things are tough, we can still choose hope.
It's a powerful message.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into time after time, what do you think is the film's most lasting impact? What will stick with our listener long after they finish this episode?
I think it's that blend of entertainment and intellectual engagement. It's a fun, exciting time travel story, yeah. But it also makes you think about the world, about what it means to be human.
It shows us that a film made decades ago can still be relevant, can still make us think about things that matter.
It's like those big questions haven't changed all that much. Good and evil, progress and destruction, love and loss.
Yeah.
We're still figuring it all out, right? And
Yeah.
time after time encourages us to keep asking those questions, to look beneath the surface, and to hold on to those moments of hope and connection.
It reminds us that even in the face of the unknown, there's still beauty to be found. And on that note, we leave you with this final thought. If you could travel through time, where would you go and why? What might you discover about yourself, about humanity along the way?